To learn the good, the bad, and the reality of the nomadic lifestyle, click the subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Click the bell notification. I have obviously spent a lot of time on my channel over the last almost 3 years talking to you about campgrounds getting shut down because of trash and human waste and just the overall disrespect of the national forest. You know, when we first started this adventure, we went to Tennessee to a little county park called Ray Springs. We were there a day and a half, and they had to shut the place down because people who have taken up residence there, the county officials would come out and clean the toilet, and literally the next moment there would be human feces all over the toilet again, right after they got done cleaning it. And then we went over to Virginia. The 2 of the 3 campgrounds that we stayed there, you know, people abandoned their tents. One of them abandoned their trash, and of course then the wildlife gets into it. And in Virginia, in the Smoky Mountains, you always have the risk of bears. So, and I'm telling you, you leave trash out, those bears will come up there real quick and find it. You know, a fed bear is a dead bear. So when they get used to all that, they come out and then hurt someone. I went to Florida, and up to that point in our adventure, Florida was the biggest disaster we've ever seen. I mean, it was daily I was picking up trash, and I felt like I was the campsite host. I've said this before. I wasn't, but every day I go around the campground. It was hunt season, so you could stay there for 3 months, clean up the trash. The hunters would kill an animal, and then they just leave the carcass right there in the middle of the campground. The bathrooms were always a disaster. I cleaned those every other day. And one day, somebody just decided to go on the floor. But then I come, to Arizona and Utah more so than Arizona. And the 2 campgrounds we stayed there was just, it was completely destroyed. There was human waste everywhere. And in one of the camping spots, it was so bad I couldn't hardly walk through it. I was scared to step. I made a video about it. I'll put a link to that video here. It gagged me the whole time I was walking through it. Then, of course, we went to Arizona, and we saw an abandoned bus. Now, that was probably the most extreme thing we've ever seen, was an abandoned bus. I've never seen anybody abandon anything beyond a tent. Now, of course, a lot of people are going to say, well, it's not nomads. It's the homeless. Well, it really doesn't matter who it is. The reality is it's happening. And the reality is I see places shutting down. I saw it over in Florida. I've said this many times. They're making most of the campgrounds from free to paid now. Mississippi, the same thing. And it just occurred to me a few days ago, I forgot there's like 4 or 5 campgrounds in the Coconino National Forest that they're going from free to paid. My assumption is that most of the campgrounds and the established campgrounds in the Coconino National Forest are probably paid now. That's my guess. I've just reported that law enforcement don't have the money to patrol the areas. They got 8 rangers for 3 national forests in Arizona. 1 supervisor of 3 national forests and 8 rangers. And they're having to deal with serious criminal activity. When I say they're going to close down these national forests and the BLMs and all of this, I'm seeing it. I was just at a BLM, and it had 55 spots that you could stay at. After the 55 spots were full, they said if you were in anything other than a tent, that you had to go to a paid campground, a privately owned paid campground. That's where you were supposed to go. Look at this. See, this is my point. I'm way back here in this national forest, way back here. And there's trash. So, they're going to shut it down. Rangers aren't going to come all the way out here to pick up that piece of trash. And that's what the expectation is. Like I said, the BLM, 55 spots, then you got to go to a paid campground. Well, that to me is shutting down. Everybody was saying that there's so much room, there's no way they're going to shut it down. And then they say, the economy's going to crash. People have too high of rent. The government has to allow you to stay in these BLMs. And I think the answer is no, they don't. But I do have a solution for you. Carolyn and I have told you that in about 4 years, because we feel like this is all going to close down, that we're going to homestead. We're just going to buy a small little shed, or we're going to build a little shed, you know, maybe 12 by 24 or 18 by 24, something real small, you know, and have solar and generator and rainwater. And we're trying to find a state that allows us to do that. And there's several on the east. Missouri, our home state, was actually, based on our research, is probably the best state to do it in. So we've been looking at Mississippi. And so far, I haven't seen anything bad about Mississippi, but it's not on the top of the list. But there is a state that is on the list of good places to homestead, and that's Arizona. And I thought, wow, all these people who say the government has to allow us to stay on BLMs are going to go to Arizona. So you're saying, okay, you're going to go to Arizona because rent's too high. Okay, that makes sense. You're going to go to Arizona, rent's too high, you're going to stay on the BLM. Makes sense. But it even gets better than that. You can buy, and we saw it, and there's varying prices, property in Arizona for $100 an acre. So if you bought 1 acre, parked your van on it because it's homesteading, or a little shed, you know, you could pick up for $1,000. Some solar panels, you're going to do all this anyways, right? You're going to have the van, you're going to have solar panels, you're going to have a generator, you're going to have water. So why not spend the $100 and go get a piece of land, or 10 acres for $1,000? This is, you know, think about this. If you're paying $1,000 in rent every month and you can't afford it, so you're going to go and live in your car. Well, go live in your car for 2 weeks or a month, 4 weeks on the BLM. Save that $1,000 from rent, and then go buy this 10 acres for $1,000. Then you can raise chickens and goats and cows. I don't know what all you can raise. But this is the outside of the box thinking, is what I'm trying to tell you. Don't rely on the government to allow you to stay in the BLM when you can have your own piece of property. I would assume that the property that's $100 is way up in the mountains or something. There's other property for $500 an acre, which is still very reasonable. Take your $1,000 and go get 2 acres. I mean, if you're just going to live in a van or a small shed, you don't need a lot of acreage. And then you have ownership. So think about this. I mean, really think about it as an option to your problem of high rent. Everybody keeps saying, there's just nothing out there to rent. Well, you could own lifetime camping for $100. Thanks for watching. Click like if you like the video, and happy travels.